much, the BritCham Executive Office team. And a warm welcome to everybody that's joining this particular webinar. This is the first of the year of the BritCham Smart Sustainable Cities member focus group webinar, a focus group that is chaired with great leadership by Ellen Utomo, who took over midway through last year. This particular webinar is not sponsored, but future webinars within this group and the other member focus groups are available for sponsorship. There are different bundled packages, and you can mix and match and pick and choose exactly what perhaps suits the goals and objectives in terms of marketing and business development of your organizations. On behalf of BritCham, really, I would just like to thank all the panelists. It's a great panel, from those that provide the hardware to those that get people doing it, to others that plan to get people doing it, and also consulting as well. So a great panel. I expect a really, really vibrant exchange, and moderated by Aldi Garibaldi. And it's to Aldi that I pass over right now with my warm greetings to all. A very happy new year, belatedly, but early if it's Chinese New Year for you too. Best wishes from BritCham. Over to you, Pa Aldi, to introduce your panel.
Thank you, Pa Chris. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I will be serving as a moderator for webinar titled Planning Bike-Friendly Cities, held by the British Chamber of Commerce. The global warming as we know it is a real threat, and can be scientifically proven. And the international goal of becoming a net zero carbon emission is challenging, and it's expensive for developing countries. Big cities in Indonesia rely on private vehicles for urban mobility, and it is expensive. The push for extensive public transportation has begun, but the low-hanging fruit is to go back to use bicycle for commuting. However, a non-friendly bicycle like Jakarta, that is of accident significant, and the push for dedicated lane has met with backlash from the public. COVID pandemic may have turned the table, and the demand for bikes suddenly increased. Folding bike became a must-have, and they can bring the bike in the office. MRT, it is foldable, doesn't take much room to store. The purpose of this webinar is to develop more comprehensive understanding of planning bike-friendly cities by learning from experts, including planners, activists, and purveyors of the commuter bike. From shaping consensus of how necessarily dedicated bike lane is, and reducing the number of carbon footprint from urban mobility. We hope that participants will use this webinar and ask questions to the prominent speakers. We're truly honored to have with us 4 prominent speakers, which I will introduce shortly. The first speaker is Pak Purwanto Setiadi. For more than 25 years, Pak Purwanto was a journalist in several media. He wrote articles on music, cycling, and coffee out of passion. He self-published Soliloquy Sepeda, a book of an essay collecting in bicycling, and his love for music started in the 70s as a teenager in his hometown in East Java. He last worked as a managing director for Tempo, and currently he freelances as an editor and writer and volunteer for Bike to Work, the biggest platform and organization for commuter bike in Indonesia. The second speaker is Mr. Stephen Loftus, Chief Commercial Officer for Brompton Bike. He has extensive FMCG background, urban mobility, and startup business experience. Since 2014, he's been leading the commercial teams at Brompton Bicycle. The third speaker is Dr. Ami Hochadel, Director Global Business Growth of Connected Places Catapult. The Connected Places Catapult provides impartial innovation and service for public bodies, businesses, and infrastructure providers to catalyze step change improvement in the way people live, work, and travel. They connect business and public sector leaders to cutting-edge research to spark innovation and grow new market. Dr. Hochadel wrote Local Leadership in a Global Era, Policy and Behavior Changes in Cities. She's an expert and has 2 decades experience in politics and public policy and community government relation, and has been a guest lecturer at Harvard University Kennedy School. She's also a certified advanced public diplomacy from University of Southern California and Annenberg School of Communication. She holds a master's degree in psychology and a bachelor degree in biology and chemistry from Ohio University and associateships of King's College in theology. The fourth speaker is Mr. Gandri Apriandito, a senior transport planner for ARU. Pak Gandri has a Bachelor of Civil Engineering from ITB and Master of Science of Transport Planning from University of Leeds. And he has experience in transportation planning by developing strategic and technical assistance for urban mobility and public transport improvement in Jakarta and several other Southeast Asian cities. Without further ado, hopefully I don't take so much of your time on that introduction. I will give the first presentation to Pak Purwanto. Pak Purwanto, please do so.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar on a subject that is significant issue, yet ignored most of the time. I'm going to focus on what my colleagues and I at Back to Work Indonesia know with regard to the subject. I'm not an expert, so I'll try to make it short. To begin with, here's a premise that Back to Work Indonesia believe in, and in fact made it as its vision worth fighting for. It's about sustainable city, where net zero living prevails and make a big scale change, impact local environment and lead to better lives and save money and so on. So there's one important thing here that we can state as something that we have to do in everyday life. That is, there's a role of cycling in sustainable cities. With that in mind, now before we proceed, I think we must define one key concept that we can agree upon. It is about what we actually mean by net zero living. I think this will be sufficient for our basic understanding. There are two important things here. A goal, one is a goal that is to reduce personal and societal environmental impact. And second, the way to achieve it, that is making positive changes which counteract climate crisis and other negative environmental concerns. Now, here's the thing. It is mentioned about the negative environmental concerns in the set definition. This leads to the question of what are actually our concerns which might affect our well-being or our goals to have a net zero living. Most of us live in a city, and everywhere cities are confronted by problems that might affect our well-being. Of all those problems, if we look closer, these are the most alarming, which are affecting our quality of life. Number one is air pollution. That is getting worse and worse. Especially we know about this in Jakarta, causing increasingly early deaths. And all the while, it has been acknowledged as well that pollutants, the tailpipe emissions expelled from motorized vehicles, is the major factor behind the climate crisis. Number two, traffic congestion. That has never been and will never be fixed by road widening or building new roads. And it incurs enormous costs to the economy, not to mention to the society. Number 3 road accidents with high fatality rates, and the fact that there haven't been serious major actions to avoid or to at least reduce it. It seems that we are lacking in a sense of urgency regarding this issue. And number 4, sedentary lifestyle. That is a type of lifestyle involving little or no physical activity that affect health, exposing more and more people to higher risk of becoming obese and getting non-communicable diseases. Now, from the mobility point of view, cycling is a reasonable way to sustainably get out of these problems. Cycling especially could be chosen to serve short trips. The importance of cycling in tackling climate crisis has also been concluded by study after study that many consider cycling as a game changer. Now, why cycling? Well, at least there are 4 reasons. Number 1 is cycling is non-polluting. Even if life cycle emissions is counted, according to the European Cyclist Federation, riding a bicycle accounts for about 21 grams CO2 emission per kilometer, more than 10 times less than a car. Cycling is also efficient as a means of mobility in city, especially for short distances as well as first and last mile trips, because it takes less energy and moves more people in less space. Cycling can also reduce fatality rates of traffic accidents. Safety and numbers phenomenon applies here. That is, more bicycling force motorists to adjust their behavior in expectation of encountering bicycle users. And last but not least, cycling can get people off their sofas. Now the necessary question is, how can we encourage people to use bicycles as a means of mobility, at least for short journeys in the cities? To be honest, it's an uphill battle actually. This is true not only in Jakarta, but also in every cities in Indonesia, It is because of the severity of people's addiction to motorized vehicles. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. The short, practical answer actually is we need bike-friendly cities. So how to make cities bike-friendly? Now, experiences from successful cities around the world teach us the following requirements. Number 1, we need political will. There should be a leader, totally supported by politicians, if it's possible, who has a vision about and is committed to build a sustainable city. And he understands the role of cycling in such a city. He should be capable of listening without being intimidated by whatever backlash it might appear. And certainly, he makes policy needed. Number 2, physical infrastructures. This covers everything from bike lanes, designs, and constructions, reclaiming on-street parking spaces and converting them into bike lanes or public spaces for people-oriented uses, bicycle parking and public showers facilities, public transport systems, to bike-sharing networks. All of these are factors that increase the attractiveness of cycling. We usually call them pull factors. And number 3, social infrastructures. This is important because contrary to what has been said over and over, that if you build bike lanes, people will come. In practice, things aren't that easy, especially in cities where privately owned motorized vehicles, using private owned motorized vehicles costs less than other means of transport. Social infrastructure comprises any measure that is mostly not physical, some categorized as push factors, such as increasing parking fees or enforcing other forms of parking restrictions, lowering maximum speed limits, establishing low emission zones or low traffic neighborhoods, and enacting driving charts in certain areas in the city. The other factors needed are probably fiscal incentives, such as bicycle ownership schemes, cycle to work program, etc. Widespread and powerful cycling advocacies and activism, and regularly holding cycling events. Now we can see that there's a long way to go to really make a city bike friendly. However, as the Chinese proverb says, that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The process needs just one step to start. Now, if we believe that bicycles can make sustainable cities, and that sustainable cities are the prescription to make a healthy, livable world, then I think whatever the one step is needed. Thank you, Archie. That's my presentation.
All right, thank you, Pak Pur. We're going to give the second presentation to Mr. Stephen Loftus, the Chief Commercial of Brompton Cycling. Mr. Stephen, the screen is yours.
Delighted to be here. Thanks for listening. Hopefully, a few of you know about Brompton Bicycle. I'm just going to tell you a bit about our view on cities and obviously the need for the bike to be the solution, and a bit about what our business and our view on where we are kind of post the pandemic and well, not post the pandemic, but in the pandemic, hopefully getting post it. But the impact it's having, we think, on cycling and cycling in cities. As already mentioned, the pre-pandemic, there was a growing awareness around the challenge we have in cities around space, around air pollution, Greta Thunberg, obviously, and the whole movement around climate change was growing hugely and globally across all cities, and health and physical health and obesity across all cities and nations. The growth of obesity, which reflects a lack of active movement in our daily lives and exercise, and also mental health. And I think we take that at Brompton very seriously. The challenge people have living in cities. And when you think about it, and the way we live our lives in cities, you can understand it. We're living in relatively small flats. We're either squashing ourselves in some form of public transport, or getting stuck in traffic in a car. Then we're getting to work. We're sitting in front of a PC for 10 hours, and then we're going back, Groundhog Day. And the challenge is, is that the best way to live? And how can you find a way to integrate other things in your day, such as getting on a bicycle and getting across your city in a fast and fun way that will kind of make life more enjoyable? Now, COVID hit, and we all know, the huge impact it's had on society and all of our lives. It definitely was an awakening to the challenges of moving, in a city in the way that we have been. When you start to think of images like this, this is the London Underground. Some of you, I'm sure, will be familiar with it. And thinking about the daily commute, you start to question, are you going to be wanting to do that? Now, clearly, as the pandemic hit, all around the world, the necessity to get people moving in the cities in a way which didn't kind of spread the pandemic stimulated a whole wave of political statements and will to invest in infrastructure in cities. And actually, the the uptake was very significant, as you might well know. There's been there was a boom in demand for bikes. Now, our challenge, and I think I'll touch on it in a bit, is how do we make that sustainable? That change in cities and the change in movement in cities, and it is the door has been opened, but it's definitely only just started, that change, and there's a danger if we don't collectively inspire more political leaders and people to get on bikes and put the infrastructure in place. This opportunity will diminish. Brompton, we've been wanting to be part of this solution from the very beginning. Our purpose is to create urban freedom for happier lives. It's something which has been ingrained in the business from our very beginning. Our Brompton, our wonderful bike, was designed by Andrew Ritchie in his flat opposite the Brompton Oratory Church in 1975. Andrew, looking for the next best thing to a magic carpet, the way to move around in a city in a quick and fun way. The business has developed off that premise. We now sell. We think we're at 70,000 last year. We'll be close to 100,000 this year. Bikes. We've moved into electric bikes. We sell into 47 countries, 1,500 retailers. Our Brompton, started in London in terms of Andrew on his kitchen table designing the flat opposite the Brompton Oratory Church, and we've always maintained our business in London. Our factory is in Greenford in West London. All of our bikes come out of that factory, and it's really important that we're trying to find ways of improving our bike to become an even better solution in cities. And it's very important for us. All of us are riding the bike every day as we're getting into the factory. It's very important that we're moving through our city so we can understand how we can make this bike better and a better solution. I mean, it was mentioned earlier the role of building bikes in cities and the obvious benefits that they bring in terms of space, in terms of you can put a bike in your flat at your work, but also intermodal, helping integrate with public transport and other forms of transport. And this has been at the heart of what Brompton's been about and continues to be. And our challenge is to promote those benefits, to enable more people to find ways of moving on a bicycle across their cities. Indonesia and Jakarta as a city has become a big part of Brompton, and those you in Jakarta hopefully might have seen a few Bromptons flying around. It's the fourth largest export market for us, and we have a big and very passionate community in Indonesia. And I think that kind of the best illustration of that is when Will, my CEO, came out. It was just before the pandemic, actually, to meet some of the community. They were kind enough to invite him to a ride at 6 o'clock in the morning in Jakarta. And Will thought, well, normally when we do these rides, we have 30, 40 of our customers to come out. He was quite taken back when 700 of our Brompton owners came out and they went on a ride through the centre of Jakarta. Quite incredible that they could do that, but it just illustrates the power of the community. And I think, what can we do as a brand to inspire more people to make change in cities and get on bikes and put infrastructure? A lot of it is about harnessing our community and inspiring through them others to make the leap, and through our marketing to really lift above our product and campaign for movement across cities and illustrate. This was just in London. This is we also about 3 years ago, we held the political hustings for the different parties on active travel, and we were trying to stimulate the debate. These are just examples on what the difference moving on bicycles can have to a city. When you start to think the amount of cars that are parked in London could be replaced with nearly 6,000 football pitches, 57 Hyde Park. Hyde Park, if you've not been to London, is a lovely, huge park in London. Just illustrates if we can create this change, what the impact it can have on everyone, not just those riding the bikes, but the environment that people are living in cities. I think one of my messages today is an opportunity to instigate change has started, and the pandemic has triggered that. However, we shouldn't be complacent. This is just search data on bike in the world and in Indonesia, and you can look at that big spike which occurred around the pandemic period. But actually, the challenge we've got is actually interest in bikes today is dropping below pre-pandemic levels. So obviously, we've had the impact of Omicron, which has slowed down the ability for people to get back to work, and so it would have had that effect. However, I think particularly from a political perspective, we as a business, Brompton, we have to keep the bicycle and its solution at the front of people's minds, both politicians and as a way to move around cities for people as they start to return to normality. Because if we don't, I think there's a real chance that we'll go back and we'll lose all the gain that we had at the beginning of the pandemic. And the other opportunity that's here, and it's interesting, I was listening to our Radio 4, BBC Radio 4 the other day about the energy crisis that's hitting us globally. And actually they were stating it's at the worst level than since the OPEC crisis in 1973. The OPEC crisis in 1973 was part of the inspiration in Holland to change the way they structure their cities, and the campaigning that happened about safe travel and healthy cities. Safe travel on the right, you can see it was around the risk to children moving around in cities with all the cars, and you've got the before and after image of what happened on that street post the change. And I think we've got to use all of these moments to inspire politicians to be brave and really make changes on infrastructure and inspire people to get on their bikes. It's a much, much better way to move in a city. I lived in London for, I don't live in London now, I commute in, but I lived in London for 15 years. I could only stand it for a year, not being on a bicycle. And once I got on a bicycle, the city transformed for me. So we've got to inspire others to go on that journey. And what Brompton does, we try and help support other organisations who are promoting this change. Bike is Best is Brompton. A number of leading brands funded this campaign, which happened in the UK by a company called Fusion Media, and it was just an example of what we want to do, and we want to be doing this in cities around the world. So I'm just going to show you a very quick video. Hopefully you can hear it, and it'll give you hopefully a bit of inspiration on how we are trying to inspire people to not go back to the way before the pandemic and take the opportunity today.
The best thing we can do right now is get back to normal, right? But what if normal isn't normal anymore? What if we're waiting for a future that makes us unhappy? Do you want things how they were, or do you want a new sense of freedom? It's time for us all to make some changes. One change we could make that would make us happier, healthier, and even save us money is riding a bike. With 2/3 of all journeys under 5 miles, the time for change is now. For short journeys, bike is best. For your health, bike is best. For your well-being, bike is best. Let's not go back to the old normal. Let's do something better together for everyone.
So thank you, and I'll be delighted to take any questions at the end.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Stephen. Now, the third presentation will be delivered by Dr. Ami Hokadel. The screen is yours, Dr. Amy.
Great. Thanks, Aldi. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to share my presentation. Here we go. So I think you know, the flow of this is quite nice because you know, Pat Purr talked about the political will, the physical infrastructure, the social infrastructure that's needed. You know, this is beyond trying to convince people to get on a bike. Stephen picked up on this around keeping this at front of mind. How do we make the change sustainable? And so at Connected Places Catapult, I'm going to talk about a little bit about how we plan the whole city to make it more bike friendly. And I'll tell you a little bit about who we are. So we are the UK Centre of Excellence for Urban Innovation in Mobility and the Built Environment. We're looking at the connections between all of these places, whether they're physical connections, digital connections, or even the social connectedness of cities. And it's not just the urban environment, because now our urban environments are connected much more broadly. They're connected from airport to city center. They're connected for commuters. They're connected between places. And so we have to think about the connectedness between all of these places. And so when we think about this in the context of cycling, I'm going to broaden this out a bit because I think that we've mentioned the word active travel. So that's beyond cycling, that's walking and other forms of travel. But this is more about, and I think Stephen mentioned this, really multimodal options. And that's what Brompton has also encouraged and why the bike is foldable for multimodal options. And I think that if we can drive multimodal options and active travel, we'll really see a drive in increasing cycling. So what I want to talk about is there has to be an intentional acceleration of this entire marketplace that will drive an increase in cycling safety, cycling infrastructure. And so it needs a holistic approach, not simply an approach to cycling. Across the UK, we've created a vision. It's good to create a vision. You want to know where you're headed in the future. You want to know where you're headed as a country and as a city. And you know, it is more of a holistic view around being healthier, being happier, making streets safer, making travel more convenient, more accessible for everyone, and really putting this at the heart of transport and decision making. I would even make that broader, putting it at the heart of urban planning. And so that's kind of a broad vision, but visions need to be implemented. Visions need to be practical. And so there's also some key principles that we've thought about as a country when we're looking at cycling and or active travel. And these are not necessarily the right design principles for every place. This is not meant to be a cut and paste or a just do what we did. And of course, even some of these principles will change over time and have changed already. But I think the point is that once you set a bold vision, then you put some design principles in place beneath that. Now you're starting to make that bold vision more practical, more able to be implemented. And when you also set a vision and then work on design principles, you're convening an entire ecosystem around the topic. And that's going to help drive it forward, convening a broader ecosystem of government, academia, business, community, etc. So what we've done at Connected Places Catapult, we've been holding active travel summits over the past year to really tackle this issue. We don't hold the summit to say, here's the solution. We hold the summit to convene all of those critical stakeholders to look at what's the practical roadmap to creating either bike-friendly cities, active travel friendly cities, or healthier cities in general. And so we've created a route map, and I'm going to go through a few of the examples of that route map. There's far more in the document itself, and it's a constantly changing document, but I'll give you a bit of a flavor of what's in that. So we look at a few things, and this is why I say there's a holistic approach. We look at the entire built environment, not just roads and bike lanes or bike paths, but we look at how the buildings are built, how the urban planning, the green spaces, the roads, the trains are planned for either urban sprawl, whether it's horizontal, whether it's vertical. And the way that we go about that and I've just provided a few examples here, we spark competitions. Because I really believe that the drive to accelerating active travel and to making this front of mind is through innovation. And that's what Brompton is doing. You know, innovation in cycling will drive the marketplace. When we drive the marketplace, we can convene more interested stakeholders. When you make this about a business imperative and not just a health imperative, you would hope that the health imperative is a good enough argument alone. However, you add a business imperative to that, and you can really create a significant momentum behind this. Looking at infrastructure, things like electric charging stations that are not just for your electric cars, they're for end-to-end trips. How do you charge your e-bikes? How do you charge your e-scooters? Are there as many of those as there are now stations popping up for electric vehicles? Looking at different types of smart technology that can increase safety. I know safety in cycling is a big deterrent for very large cities. So these are just a few of the ideas that the route map comes up with, trying to make that very practical, looking at what's appropriate for your own city. Another area is looking at innovation in combo travel. Again, something that Brompton knows very well. Looking at those products and services that support combo travel. And I'll have to admit that today I am in the office. You might hear a bit of chatter behind me. It's really nice to be back in an office and hear a bit of chatter. But I didn't ride a cycle. I didn't cycle to work, but I walked to a local e-scooter station. I rented an e-scooter to take it to my local train station. I took that train to the neighborhood where my office is located. And from that train station, I walked to work. That's combo travel. These are the types of things we need to encourage for people to not only take up more cycling, but to take up active travel in general. And you can see some of the examples that in our route map people have given as to how they can drive that and how they can encourage that. We also need to look at leveling up active travel. I'm sure everybody on this call and those cycling enthusiasts know cities are built for cars. Not always so, but certainly in modern history, cities are built for cars. We need to level up active travel and make it as easy to travel under your own power as it is by a car. And right now, cities are not built for, not optimized for active travel. But there are ways we can do that, and innovation can drive that, and businesses can support that. And in the route map, there are examples of how we can level up for active travel. And then this is one that's, I think, one of the most important ones, researching test bed, robust evaluation. You would hope that we could encourage more people to get on a bicycle. You would hope that we would tell them the benefits of it, and that would be enough. But really, there's a drive here around innovation that can make cities better, can make neighborhoods better, can make businesses thrive, entrepreneurs thrive. And that's bringing together a cross section of the community, including the manufacturing sector, design, the digital economy, and creating innovations that help make this facilitate active travel. Innovation can be an enabler of this. I think it's going to be one of the biggest enablers of this. And we'd love to see a flurry of trials and test beds in city centers. This also creates buy-in for people. People want to see what it's like before they get on that bicycle and make that lifestyle change. When you see test beds, when you're able to see the implications, when people see, oh, there's actually less traffic on my street is quieter, the air seems healthier. When they can see that in their own neighborhoods, then you're starting to show people the benefits of the change, rather than just saying you have to do this and the benefits will come. And so test beds and trials and cities engaging in those test beds and trials are really critical, I think, to driving active travel. I also think that cities partnering, global partnerships in this are also quite important. And so hopefully it's come through in the examples that this takes an ecosystem. This will not be driven by the cyclists alone. We need place leaders involved. We need investors involved to drive the innovations that are going to lead to increased cycling and active travel. We need the innovators, able to facilitated, supported in the community, running these test beds. And we need employers and businesses facilitating that as well. And I think Pat Purr gave great examples about, accommodations for active travel in businesses that people can make. So, one of the things that the Catapult does is convenes the ecosystem so that we can help develop those solutions. Now, I'll give you one example of this. This was a project that we did in India last 2 years ago, and it's a clean air street. And I think if I hit this again, you'll see. This is Church Street, in the center of the central business district in Bangalore. This is a living test bed. We've partnered with multiple Indian partners, innovators, entrepreneurs, academics, government leaders. If anyone, those of you who are attending this are aware of the type of congestion and what the roads are like in India, as well as Indonesia and other Southeast Asian cities, quite congested. This is not your typical street. We've shut down the street and it's a test bed. On certain days, it's for pedestrians. On other days, it's for pedestrians and cyclists. Other days, it's for the electric tuk-tuks. So this is about testing. This isn't about saying we have the silver bullet and we know what to do. This is about getting buy-in from people, testing and showing the art of the possible. And I think this is also a thing that we can do in partnership, the UK and Indonesia. I just wanted to share that if you're interested in some of the design principles in the route map and the things that I've talked about, there's 2 documents really that encompass the content of this presentation, and it's these 2 documents. So maybe you want to take a screenshot there, or I'll share the presentation after. But I think that there's a real opportunity here for partnership between the UK and Indonesia. I think that we can collaborate on a shared vision. That vision that I said for the UK is one that could be a shared vision for multiple places, multiple cities. I think that we can co-create design principles for cycling, for cycling-friendly cities, active travel-friendly cities. We can co-create a route map for for Indonesia, as we've done in the UK. I think we can also pair up our entrepreneurs. Let's have them work together. Indonesia is a phenomenal location for driving electric bicycles. And when we talk about combo travel, we're also talking about electric vehicles, 2-wheelers, etc. That kind of multimodal form of transport. Indonesia has the assets of minerals to want to drive that manufacturing. So not only a manufacturer of cycles, but of electric vehicles as well. I think that creates a really nice opportunity for partnership between the UK and Indonesia. And of course, I'd really love to see a partnership between us running those types of test beds so that we can show people the art of the possible and create more active and friendly streets for cyclists and for active travel in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amy. The last presenter is going to be Gandri Priyandito. So the screen is yours, Gandri.
Thank you, Aldi. Let me share my screen. So hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. So thank you for joining. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Gandri. I work for Arup and based in Jakarta office. My day-to-day job is a transport planner, and walking and cycling are both my professional and personal interest to me at the same time. So let's get into the slides. I think all of us here agree that walking and cycling are crucial when we talk about sustainable urban mobility. I will start with some data and key facts in Greater Jakarta. So the first one is mode share. As you can see, unfortunately, this is a great challenge for walking and cycling because over the past decade, NMT or non-motorized transport, or you can call it active mobility, continue to decline. Motorcycles are practically everywhere in the city, but there will always hope, in my opinion. So there is another set of data that mention 7% of the total trips are actually less than 1 kilometer, and 44% is under 5 kilometers in Greater Jakarta. This is the chart for the trips per distance on the right. There's a quite good proportion between 0 to 1.5 kilometers. And we have the opportunity to promote walking and cycling, especially for distance up to 3, 4, 5 kilometers, because that bar, the current proportion is still relatively low. So when we want to plan for bike-friendly cities, there are 5 essential principles, and I'll quickly run through. This is not in particular order. The first one is comfortable. It's about the smooth and even surface with no obstacles. Second, attractive. It's not easy to achieve this, as you need to integrate your bike lane with the land use or the surroundings. So in a way, you don't feel monotone when you cycle all the way. Next, direct. It's about planning based on where people come from and go to. So cities in the Dutch has so good examples about directness for cycling. Next, so rather than creating just one section of bike lane, coherent is about network that connects between popular origin and destinations. And then lastly, safe, which probably can be considered as the most important factor in Indonesia. This can be in the form of protected bike lane and also lighting during the night. So I would like to touch about cycling in tropical cities, because Jakarta or Indonesia, we are located at the equatorial. We have different weather and climate than in the Northern Hemisphere or in the Europe. It would be a lie if I say it doesn't influence cycling. When we did a bicycle network project in Penang in Malaysia, there's a paper for Malaysia and Singapore context that reveal high temperature above 28 degrees Celsius have negative impact to cycling ridership. But I want to highlight that this should not stop us to promote cycling. That's why we have planners, we have designers, we have advocates here, which sometimes should be pragmatic about the situation. If it is hot and humid, okay, let's provide shaded or sheltered cycling path. If you are sweaty when arriving at your destinations, let's provide end-of-trip facilities such as shower, locker, toilet. So these are the measures to mitigate the situations that we have in tropical cities. And talking about the end-of-trip facilities, this is how end-of-trip can be look like. This is one of what we call with design boosters. So they are basically the elements that help enhance usability and the usage of cycling. Because we believe to build a cycling culture, it's not just about the bike lane only, but beyond that, there are design boosters which should be mandated in the guidelines, mandated by the government to provide such facility in the building. And yeah, I think previous speakers also mentioned about this. So with public transport, cycling is really a huge complement for the whole journey. It does improve coverage when the integration is provided with ease. This is a study from Copenhagen. As you can see, when you have the integration with cycling, the coverage will be much, much wider. And I think Jakarta's public transport operators are moving toward that integration. So bicycle parking starts to be built at the transit stations or other stuff such as the elevator, the step-free, and also the bike share, which are also introduced in the city. Next one would be, I really want to highlight this section because Arup has a particular focus on inclusion in cycling. As I'm sure most people on the call are aware that cycling tend to be dominated by certain demographics, male, sporty, lycra, but we are having that focus. Cycling is really for everyone. So as you can see, there's a wide spectrum of cycling users here. You have a mother who carry her daughter to school using a bike. There are also kids who use bicycle to go to school or just playing around on the street. And there are people as well in Jakarta who use their bike, use their physical effort to earn a living. They can sell bread, vegetables, kerupuk, drinks, or whatever. So basically, these are also the groups that are important to be incorporated as well in the planning process. And talking about the planning approach, so this is the planning approach that we divide based on the barriers and actions, and also places, people, and governance. So it is important to provide a safe space for cycling, and then using inclusive language and imagery. And one critical thing is related to the previous one, which is ensuring a diversity in the decision making. Yeah, I think that's about it. And this is my last slide. I'd like to mention that Arup believes cycling is one of the key ingredients to create a more sustainable cities. That's why we have projects in Indonesia, in the region, and also globally to help shaping the plan to be comprehensive and also inclusive. For example, in IKN, we developed the compact and scalable city. And then we are currently doing the TOD in Senen, in Central Jakarta as well. And yeah, we also have some publications in cycling, walking, and cities, which you can simply download in our website for free if you are interested. So thank you everyone for listening. Hope that was insightful and happy to take further discussion. Cheers.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We got wonderful presentation from 4 speakers. Obviously, you guys are expert in this. We talk about net zero living, Pak Pur touch base on how the political will and building the physical infrastructure for cycling can reduce big pollution that are now plaguing big cities in the world. Stephen mentioned about how Brompton or folding bike can keep improving the quality of life and then solving urban problem. Dr. Amy talked about the bold decision, a bold vision, and having a design principle that are not copy-paste, but really city by city. And this point has been strengthened by Gandri, who mentioned about the data of what mobility, urban mobility in Indonesia or in Jakarta in particularly, and how the climate, the weather, tropical weather affect traveling, urban mobility. And then the most important thing, obviously, the inclusivity of cycling and ensuring everybody is involved in the decision making. So now we're moving on to a Q&A discussion. If you have any question, please do so right in the Q&A. We have Michelle Beers here. So you have 2 questions actually, Michelle. So isn't this distance between middle income neighborhood, for instance, Depok, and the middle income jobs, office personnel, in Sudirman and Rasuna Said. So this is for those of you who doesn't know what Sudirman and Rasuna Said is the heart of our CBD. It's also a major problem. So that's a question I think Pak Purwanto could address. Pak Pur, go ahead, Pak.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I live in Depok, the area Piers mentioned. Actually, people in the cities around Jakarta actually can use or mix their travel with commuter line trains And if you bring your bicycle, you can just get on the train and bring your bicycle. It's only allowed to folding bicycles, but it's make it a lot easier for people who don't want to take more than say 10 kilometers or more, so that you can easily make your trip to anywhere your destination with commuter lines. Also, if I live in an area that is too far from the commuter line train station, so I usually take my bike to the nearest MRT station, and I just bring my bags to the train to wherever I want to go. So that my bag can be my first mile or my last mile trip. That is probably that we can do for people who live in cities around Jakarta.
Thank you, Pak. There's another question from Pak Michelle. I think you addressed this, Pak Stephen. So, safe travel in healthy cities. Yes, government can have many larger than life ambition for cycling, but the people, the ones who need to do it, want safety in pleasant surrounding. How can Brompton and its Kota Brompton communities help improvement in that aspect?
Yeah, that's a good question. I put a couple of quick thoughts in the Q&A box. First thing is we can continue both directly and through our communities to inspire change at a government level, both local and national. I think the local is very important in your local community, and it's about it's very important to campaign for the benefits for the total city, not just for the community of those people who are cycling. So I think you've got to kind of demonstrate the benefits to the environment, both kind of the air, the noise, as well as the broader benefits in terms of, you know, a better environment for your children. I think that inspires a lot of people. If you think of the people in positions of power, through the eyes of their children is going to be more powerful than through someone else. And secondly, I think it's about making it easier to make the leap. We can't wait for infrastructure. We've got to inspire people to get on their bikes and be confident. So find ways to, for Brompton as an example, for people to join our community that are very welcoming, to help people be aware how they can cycle in a city. What are the practical tips? What are the routes, the lovely routes? You don't have to go on the shortest route. You can go on the most enjoyable route where the traffic's a bit quieter and you can enjoy the city. So I think using our community and ourselves to give people the confidence to make that leap. You know, infrastructure's come along in cities, but you don't need to wait. I cycle around all cities in the world when I go to them. So you just need to be confident and have that confidence to take that leap. So our job is to do that. So inspire the change at infrastructure, but also inspire people not to wait, get on their bikes.
Thank you, Stephen. So that question is a segue from my question. This is directed to Dr. Amy. In Jakarta, we have a serious backlash, as Pak Purwanto knows. There's the campaign of building a dedicated lane for bike, but the general population does not believe that's necessarily, because obviously they said bicycle doesn't pay taxes and motorized vehicle pay taxes. Now, how do you create that consensus among government and among citizens on a dedicated lane? Or how do you go from 0 to 400 kilometers in city like on dedicated bike lane in the cities like Copenhagen? How do you do that? Dr. Amy, please.
I think there was also backlash in London when we were building. There was massive backlash building bike lanes. I think it speaks to a couple different things. One, I think it's why test beds are important. People need to be able to see it to understand the benefit of it. If they can't see it first, it's hard to get that buy-in across a large group of people. I think that you also need to convene an ecosystem of supporters first. So one stakeholder cannot push this through alone. So it takes a while to build that kind of convening of all of the stakeholders, government, academia, business. Business is so critical. And that's kind of my final point is what will drive this, and you mentioned this, people say that it's about taxes, it's about income. That's how places make money. And I know in my own neighborhood, parking spots drive money. So you have to make this a business imperative. If we can also show people that this is $1 billion market, that this also drives revenue, that this creates economic growth in cities. If we can work with people to help them understand that, then you'll start to see more support for multimodal provisions in infrastructure and in bike lanes. So I think that we need to drive the business case for this in order to bring people on board.
Thank you. So there's a couple of questions here in the Q&A box. Amanda asked, in your opinion, to all the panelists, among all aspects needed to create bike-friendly cities, which one should be prioritized by the government? Of all aspects, which one you go first? Is it, I guess the question would be rephrased as, would you go by like building the dedicated lane, or is it gonna be spending money to campaign for it first, or building consensus? What is it that can roll that or have that snowball effect on pivoting a city from motor vehicle friendly into a non-motorized vehicle friendly?
Yeah, I think learning from the Dutch, which was also mentioned by Stephen, we need to understand that they are not the city that we see right now in the 1960s or 70s. It was started with casualties to people, especially children. So from that moment, there's a huge tipping point to make the street safer, to limit the car use. So the campaign is not about the cycling per se, but it's about making the street safer. And design the street and also the junctions on the right hierarchy, prioritizing the walking and also cycling. So we are at the stage right now where, you know, cars and motorcycles are all over the street. So I think a city always have a choice whether they want to stay as it is, just business as usual, or a major shift to walking and cycling, just like in the Dutch in 1970s. Yeah.
All right. So obviously, your answer would be there would be an event, or there would be a consensus that create, or there's an event that create consensus how a city could pivot. Is that what you're saying, Gandri? Or
Yeah, and also it relates to what Dr. Amy mentioned. There should be a huge vision first from the government, and after that, it goes to the more technical level, which is the design practices for the implementing.
sure thing. Another question for Stephen. Haven't been in, Brompton is UK based business. Is there a discussion of having a co-location of manufacturing in Southeast Asia to fulfill the needs of Brompton demand in Southeast Asia?
It's a question that is often asked. I mean, Brompton, we as I said in my presentation, we make our bikes in London, and a lot of it's about us making sure that we're continually experiencing what our customers experience in the city and have this continuous loop back into improving the product. So in the foreseeable future, no, we don't see us moving our production outside where we are today in the UK. We have the capability. We're only on a 4.5 day week in terms of shifts. We have the ability to increase our production quite significantly through our current site, and we recognise one of the most important things about Brompton, as you would expect, is the quality of the bike, and we need to be as hands-on that in every aspect to ensure that is maintained. And actually, because we're riding the bike ourselves most days, we're never happy with the bike. We want it to be better and better. And so, you know, our future is going to be built on our ability to really make leaps of improvement on our bike, and obviously an electric Brompton. We have an electric Brompton is a big part of that future. So we feel as if we move the production outside where we are based and our engineers and our designers are based, it would dilute our ability to really kind of make our bike better over the next 5 to 10 years. So we see our base in London continue to be the case for, you know, at least the foreseeable future.
Okay, I guess that's enough question for everybody. Don't you think, Ellen?
Hello, Aldi and all the panelists. Thank you very much for giving us all the presentation and sharing your thought in this webinar. Certainly very interesting. I myself learned a lot about this planning for good cities. Excited to talk to Gandri more about this TOD planning and the new cities planning in Indonesia. Hopefully we're very, not just cyclist friendly, as Dr. Amy says, well, active traveling friendly. So I think that's a lot of work for everyone. And I'm sure Bike to Work, Pak Puronto and the community, and also like Brompton community in Indonesia, I'm sure there'll be a very active part of this input into our future cities planning. Yeah, so overall, I'm very, very great. Very thank you for all the thought that has been shared with us. Our focus group is always advocating for more sustainable cities, of course, and always open for open discussion for all the topics in relation to this, to the topics. Yeah, so thank you, everyone. Thank you as well, Aldi, for moderating this. Very great moderation, and thank you for all the questions. I think we have a very good webinar today, and we will continue to do more events in the coming future. And thank you for all the viewers as well who joined this webinar.